Hi, welcome to Coach Dave Turn Academy. This is for the week ending 12/8. Enjoy. Okay, we have a pretty good stance here. I would like to see him bent over a little bit more so that he was a little bit closer on his spine tilt to maybe 2 o'clock, maybe more 90 degrees to the shaft angle, like the blue lines are there. It's a minor detail, but oftentimes the setup is what creates the opportunity to move in the direction and the quality that we want to move in. Let's go ahead and play this forward in slow motion, see what's going on with the swing. My favorite speed, 1/8 of normal. Pretty good takeaway right there. Not a lot of lift. A little head movement right there we don't like too much. But it moved him down into the spot where we wanted him to be. If we go back, watch this downswing, he's going to get closer to where that spine angle would be at the regular setup. What he's also done though is moved his hip towards the ball too. If I back up to the setup position, see at the bottom of the white line where his the hem of his shirt is, and watch how he moves forward. That's everything moving in, which means he's going to catch the ball way in on the heel. Let's clear everything out of the way. You'll see that right there. He's moved towards the ball, so he can't make good solid contact. One of the things we want to do is imagine that our butt sits out on a wall when we're set up. And we're going to stay on that wall. You see how he's moving away from the wall? Way away, several inches. So keep your butt out and keep it against the wall. This gives a good picture of how the setup changes when we have the longer club in our hands. Obviously he's not bent over anywhere near 2 o'clock, but if you look at his spine, if we go from the hip joint up to his ear, his spine's about 90 degrees to the golf shaft. That's what we look for. We're going to play this in slow motion. One of his issues is he has a tendency to lift the club off the ground early in the backswing. So we'll watch this at 8th speed, see what's going on. There we go. See how it's lifting? He's lifting the club up on a very vertical and then over the top. So he's looping and then stepping up out of the swing. Now, I did make good contact that time, but because there was so much movement going on, we watch this here. Watch the head pulling away. It takes a lot of hand-eye coordination to execute that shot, and under pressure it may fail. The other thing it is it's a weak shot because you're coming in so steep that the ball's going to fly too high because it has too much backspin on it. We talk a lot about the spin around the wedges, but we'd like to have a relatively small amount of spin off the tee so the ball will penetrate rather than lift. If it lifts, it falls out of the sky too soon when the RPMs drop. So what we're going to do here is try to get him to take the club back lower and slower. Instead of lifting it, we want the club, you can see how he's hinging the wrist right there. We want that club to be on the green line. The hands are going to rotate. Now, right about here, that club needs to start pointing behind him. One of the things I like to do is take a look at the seam here on the shirt right there and get that shaft up on that seam parallel to that seam. And you see he doesn't quite get there. So now he's way over the top and he swings even more over the top. Take it back low and slow. One of the things we hear a lot about is what we call the tour angle 144, and that's the angle of the arms from the shoulder to the end of the golf club, and then from the end of the golf club down to the ground on the shaft plane. He's got a really good setup right there. Let's go ahead and watch this in slow motion and see what he does. There's lifting. Not bad. Now, a little bit. And then a little bit over the top, but right about in here, he starts throwing that club head out away. In order to maintain power, the club shaft now should be, I'm going to draw this in red here, draw a red line in our power line. That's where the club shaft needs to be. It needs to be parallel to that trail arm so we can generate some power and release the club through impact. He's already releasing the club really early as he comes in right there. You can see that it's released almost completely right there. He's got no lag left at all. Plus he hasn't transferred any weight. So we're going to get him to work on more club lag, get the club a little flatter on the downswing. Perhaps one of the most difficult things to do in the golf swing is to maintain a solid axle that we're going to turn around, or an axis of our swing. That axis is the spine. So if we draw a line up the spine, what we want to do is we want to see her turn on that axis. And her difficulty, especially if she gets a little tired because she hits an awful lot of golf balls, is she starts using her whole body in an up and down motion rather than a round and round motion to execute the golf swing. Again, we're going to watch it in slow motion. We'll watch the swing. There's your lifting going on right away, pulling away really high. She comes back down on plane pretty good and pulls her elbows in. And the contact, as we come back to the contact point, you can see was well out on the toe. There, you can see that, how far out on the toe that is if she's coming into impact. Nice and slow. There we go. Out on the toe. The reason we're out on the toe, obviously we've pulled our back away from the spine. We haven't got our right shoulder down under our chin. So we're lifting up rather than rotating. We're going to work hard on getting her to rotate, because her miss is sometimes to completely miss the ball altogether. Notice she's got the club back on the shaft plane really well, but it's inside a little bit because her hands are higher than they were before. She's got to slow down and work on turning to move the club, not up and down. Oftentimes when we have a longer club in our setup, we end up facing the ball, and the ball is played forward in our stance. Therefore, our true alignment is quite a bit to the right for a left-hander to where our intended target line was. Denny indicated that he wanted to hit it right down the barrel line, but you can see very easily that the toes are parallel to that target line very nicely, but you can't even see any of the lead shoulder or lead arm in this position, and even the hips have rotated quite a bit. So what that's going to do is put him in a position that he's going to come across the ball or pull it, and it frustrates him because then he goes dead left or sometimes puts an ugly slice on it. So we have to get in alignment that allows our ankles, knees, thighs, hips, and chest to all be square to the ball, square to the target line. So let's advance our swing at 8th speed. We'll see at what point do we see the shoulders come into alignment. Now we got the shoulders are parallel to the target line, but look how far he had to swing in order to get that. A little bit of movement right there, head's dropping down, a lot of movement in, pulls, and by golly, where'd the ball go? Right where he lined up. And he's going to feel like he hit it too far to the right. So we have a nice setup. He's got his arms nice and long, create a beautiful triangle there. The yellow line represents what we call the power line, and that's what we want our lower body to move past prior to impact, while our head stays behind the yellow line. So once again, we're going to go to the slow-mo version because it's always easier to see. We're seeing a lot of lifting going on. See how high his head is getting? He's standing straight up in the middle of his swing. Again, that's not a round swing, that's an up-down swing. And then the head and everything kind of move forward a little bit. Still make good contact because he's got great hand-eye coordination. But my goodness, if we could have got him just to pivot around this fixed point, that's his head right there, how much better can it be? My grandfather had me practice by putting my head up against the wall in the living room and just swinging my arms with my head staying stationary. So it's much harder to hit a moving ball than it is a still ball, but it's also easier to hit a still ball when our center of our swing is still, not steel, still. We drew a few extra lines in here. The yellow is the traditional swing plane line. I drew the back plane a little differently because what I'd like to see is his head back a little bit so that his head is touching the green line. That'd be parallel on his back, but he does have a very nice straight back. The white line represents the knee position relative to the feet. We want the knees to be out over the shoelaces, not past the toes, and he's in a really good setup right now. His eyes are focused down on the golf ball. Let's advance this swing in slow motion, and let's kind of pay attention to what goes on here as we move. Nice takeaway. Little vertical there. So he's coming over the top and pulling up and out of the swing. And the reason he's pulling up out of the swing is we can see, if you look closely, you can see that the left knee is completely straightened out. You see that how the left leg has gotten straight, and that's why he's pulling up and out of the swing. The other thing is, right about here, if he'd have just kept going back instead of lifting up, because he's lifting straight up now, he's got a two-plane swing going on. It's a two-plane setup, but within a two-plane setup, you can have a one-plane swing and a two-plane swing. The two-plane swing is much harder to do. So now he's coming a little over the top. We need to get him to reroute the club from here down and back under. Maybe, obviously not that far, but that's the idea. We want to drop the club underneath the yellow line, and he's over the top of it. So that's a very steep swing, creates a high soft shot, which is okay for a wedge, but not with a fairway wood or a hybrid when you're trying to gain some distance. So got to learn how to drop the club under the swing plane on the way back to the ball. All we're going to watch here is the head. And again, we've talked about this a lot, that the head is the pivot point around which we swing. The eyes stay facing forward, the chin points to the golf ball as our shoulders rotate around that fixed object. You can see if we move that fixed pivot point, everything's going to move with it. You can see tremendous amount of movement. The plane is being off. It's very difficult then to come down and make a good solid contact with the ball. Again, she catches it off the toe. That's her big miss. We've got to get her to stay centered over the ball so that if she's coming into impact, we'll put a little impact notice right there. So we're coming into impact. You can see the club is way inside. Good. So, there she can see how far to the left she swings. Catches that ball right out on the toe. And off to the right it goes. Got to keep the head still. Here we see a pretty nice setup. He has a tendency sometimes to get really low and squat it over. What I like is you can see that his belt line is almost parallel to the club shaft. That tells me that he's bending over at the hips, not at the waist. He's got a nice straight back, a little rounding near the top, but as he pulls his shoulders back, he'll be able to release some of that tension. So let's go ahead and watch the swing here. Just kind of thinking about it. Nice takeaway right on the plane line. Hands coming up a little bit more than they need to, but he's in a great position. Went a little too far, drops the hands back down under the plane, and a nice pop. That's what we like to see, a really nice high wedge shot like that. Aiming for the bucket, almost put it in the bucket. Very nicely done. We've been working with this golfer to do a couple of things. One is to create a smooth, easy, relaxed, slower swing. And the other one is to try to keep the spine tilt consistent throughout the swing. On this swing, she was able to do one of those. She really did a smooth, easy swing, which resulted in great contact and a good result. We're still struggling with the spine tilt. We're going to advance this forward at half speed, actually 8th speed. See, we're still losing the spine tilt. Standing up, pulling up out of the swing. But because it was so smooth, she stayed right on the yellow line, hit nice straight contact, and good motion. Now, sometimes hand-eye coordination can help you overcome bad technique. Sometimes, more than likely, our hand-eye coordination isn't going to save us as much as developing a good technique will. So we're going to continue to work on the smoothness of the swing, but even more importantly, on keeping that head from bouncing up and down. One of the things we see a lot of golfers do is add more movement to their golf swing than they need to have. In this case, what we're going to see is that he's going to take his left arm out away from his chest, or lead arm, on the way back. The lead arm needs to stay on the chest. as we turn back, because that's the connection. The lead arm to the chest is the connection that creates power. We're going to watch this swing, and I'm see all of a sudden, see how far away he's getting? Great big gap there. Way away, the hands have moved all the way back, and he hasn't rotated his shoulders much. Now it's going to require him to reroute everything back down to the inside and pull away so he can get a good shot off. See how much he's pulled away to get that shot off? He's lifted completely up out. And notice he's taken just a gobload of dirt. We tease him saying we're going to give him some potatoes to plant in there. And that's because he's coming in so steep that he's got to slam it in the ground. If we can get him to change the takeaway so that from right here, we don't see the lead arm until he's well past waist high. We see the lead arm right away. We want him to be bringing those clubs straight back, the hand straight back. The club head can stay outside. He doesn't have to over rotate it. He's actually rotated it way open. See how open he's got that club? And it's well inside the hands. It needs to be outside the hands. At this point now, the club head should be, out in here somewhere, and the hand should be back on the line. And we can see we're not doing that. Keep the hands on the line and keep in your posture. We have a new golfer here, fairly new, picking up the game, seems to be enjoying it. She's in what we call a single plane setup, which means the arms and the club shaft are all on the same line. She gets to stand pretty tall, very athletic, very, very good setup. We're going to take this back nice and slow and just see what happens. See if she stays on the single plane throughout the whole swing. A little bit under the plane, not bad. That's because the left knee is collapsing, but she's back on it pretty good there. Pretty good. Good impact, straight to the target line. Now, she didn't quite get to the bottom of the swing arc. If we back up, you're going to see that the club isn't quite on the ground. I'm going to clear this out of the way so you can see it. Where it doesn't quite touch the grass. See, that's actually the ball kicking up that dirt. She's hitting the top of the ball. And that's because she did pull up out of the swing a little bit. A lot of beginner golfers struggle with hitting the ground. And I think one of the key fundamentals, I call it the fourth fundamental in swing, is be able to hit the ground where you want. We hit the ground with every swing except for the putter and the driver. And sometimes with the putter, we even need to hit the ground there too if we're using it as a chipper. Other than that, it's a good swing. I would keep that left knee from falling forward so much. You want the knees to stay parallel to each other. So the knees should stay right like that, right where they are. And we see the left knee's coming way out. The right knee did fine. Right on through, not bad. We can see a little alignment issue here. I've drawn in the swing plane, which is dictated by the shaft of the club. Swing plane's okay, but if we look down closely, we look at where the golf ball is, you see he's got the golf ball well in on the heel of the golf club. If the ball's not moving, let's go ahead and put it at the best possible place to impact the face of the club. I believe we set the face of the club down directly behind the golf ball on a direct line to the target, and then face the face of the club at the target, and then line ourselves up to the golf ball. The golf club, not the golf ball, so that we're in a good position. What we see here is that his shoulders are fairly far left of his intended swing line. He told me where he was aiming, which was out at the tree out here. So we need to get him to get a little bit better alignment. We're going to work on that. If we're all aligned correctly, it's like having the tires and wheels of your car aligned. It's just easier to drive. So let's go ahead and watch this swing at 8th speed. See what goes on here. Now we see his shoulders getting lined up. He's staying on the plane, very nice. A little lifting right there, and then the over the top move. And he cuts across it and kind of gets a high, weak swing out of it. Doesn't get the power that he should be getting because the blow is what we call a glancing blow. See how wide open the club is and how outside the line it is? And then it goes dead left. We need to swing to the target a little more. And in order to do that, I have to rotate my hips to face the target. So we got to learn to swing to the target, through the ball to the target.